please explain to me when healing became like this forever and ever process. This prison of, well, maybe you'll heal, maybe you won't heal, but you got to keep doing this thing, whatever it is. When did that happen? So, like, stay in therapy forever, stay in 12-step recovery forever, go to all the seminars forever, read all the books forever. You know what I mean? I think that this is a myth. I don't think this is a myth. I know this is a myth. My own experience tells me that owning a healed state, living in a healed state, is a reality. So my name is Brett, and I am here to reassure you and to tell you from my own experience that healing is real and that it is your birthright and that you have everything that you need right here inside yourself. You don't need to do this forever and ever and ever, unless, like me, you really love reading the books and you really do like watching the videos and, you know, doing the practice, different practices and things, you know, that you enjoy, that, you know, bring some happiness and comfort and, you know, centeredness to your life. Nothing wrong with that. That is not the same thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about gurus who tell you, you must do this, you must join a group, you must pay a membership, you must buy the books, and you must hop on a plane and go to meditation retreats, and you have to stay in therapy and pay your therapist forever and ever. And you know what? You can do those things, but you don't have to. You can actually heal from grief and trauma and even addiction. Okay? So I'm going to explain all of that stuff later on. Right now, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. And in a previous video, I talked about how I was a 12-stepper for 18 years and what was involved in the process of my leaving 12-step recovery. I talked about a lot of stuff in those two videos, but what I want to tell you is, after my husband died, I had a lot of unresolved, unhealed crap come to the surface. It's like the grief grabbed hold of all this stuff that was still inside of me and pulled it up to the surface. And I had sort of a pivotal moment where I had to decide, either succumb to the pain or grab it by the face and find a way to heal it. And one of the reasons that I decided to do the face grabbing, the healing, was because I had 4 kids. You know, I was such a mess. And in order to even begin to be there for them after they lost their dad, I absolutely had to figure that out. So I did have that as an impetus to go on and grow and, you know, heal. And I'm glad in that sense that something finally pushed me to the point where I would do it, you know, because when I was working steps with a sponsor and doing all the things in 12-step recovery, while it sort of kept me from using, I guess, that was sort of, you know, what I was told I was doing it for, it didn't really go much deeper than that. And so when I had that huge life event happen, and actually both of my parents passed away shortly after that too, so it was like, here it is, heal this. And in a way it was kind of like, heal this or else, you know. So I went into therapy, and one-on-one therapy, and I also went into group therapy, and I started doing that deep work, you know. And I still consider that sort of first stage recovery work, and what I teach is sort of second stage recovery work, the healing that goes on after we've peeled back a lot of the layers and done a lot of the initial slogging through the junk from our childhoods, the loss, the grief, and not always just childhood. Life has a way of um, bringing us less than pleasant experiences. So, all those things. This is, hold on, please hold. I knew for me that as I started to do this deeper work, as I started to do the work, uh, the peeling back just the most surface layer grief and trauma, I started to see glimpses of my own innate truth and my own exponential power that just lived inside of me. Not because I did anything special or I was different than anybody else, because we all have this, right? But I started to really recognize it. And the fact for me was that all the things that I had gone through as a sexually abused child, as an abandoned child, as a date rape victim as a teenager, and all the things that caused me to check out of my body and check out of my life had sort of covered over my own strength, my own power. And I lived like that. Fortunately, I was pretty young when I got into the process of recovery, but I would say that it wasn't until I was in my 30s, after my husband died, that I started to really see that my mind was a powerful instrument, if you will. Um, and I say that because my discovery is this, that there really is no more powerful force for humanity than our own imaginations. And what I mean by that is what we think about becomes our reality. What we tell ourselves becomes our truth. And so this really ties in to why I sort of became the kind of healed woman that I became, was because I realized that while we're told we have to stay in the rooms of recovery or the rooms of therapy or just in that whole, manifestation or magical someday-ness will be healed if we just put it all together the right way, I realized that I don't have to stay forever and ever if I have learned the tools that I need to heal whatever it is that needed to be healed. And I hope that makes sense. Like, I don't have to stay forever and ever and repeat forever and ever to myself that I am sick or that I am broken or that I am an addict. I can do something else. I can think about, I am powerful. I am strong. I am healed. Because everything that we tell ourselves becomes our reality, as I said. And so once I knew that I could not be in my integrity and sit in a room full of people and tell them that I'm an addict, that I am sick, and interestingly, using 12-step recovery as my model is fairly controversial because it's so widely accepted in the medical profession, the psychotherapeutic arena, and there's a whole industry of rehabilitation and pharmaceuticals and things like that. And I'm not being conspiratorial in any way or saying anything against 12-step recovery, because I sat there for 16 plus years, doing all the things that 12-step recovery requires of you to stay there, and then I spent 2 years, sort of shoring up my healed self and the truth about what that meant, and sort of developing a plan to leave in a healthy way. Realized that I was out of integrity, number one. And number two, I realized that for me, it doesn't necessarily make sense. And this includes my 5 years in therapy and in a group during that 5 years. it doesn't make sense to me to learn all these valuable skills and to, as they say, fill my toolbox full of all these amazing, beautiful tools if I'm not meant to go out into the world, into my life, and use them. That just didn't make sense to me. And it's still, that's not something that I would engage in at this point in my life. It's like, if I have something to learn, I'm going to learn it and I'm going to use it. And so that's really the message of today's video, is that when you enter into the next phase of your recovery or second stage recovery, and you've been doing all the things, and you've, whether it's 12-step recovery or therapy or all the reading or, joining all the groups on Facebook or whatever that looks like for you, you've done all the things. You're a great meditator, or you have a great relationship with your higher power, or all of those things, but there's still something between you and your healed life. And in a way, some of that's going to be the messaging that you've been given, especially since self-help is such a profitable business, and I always hesitate to just like bash industries or things that do have helpful aspects to them. But remember, these are money-making things. And so what do they need to make their money? They need people willing to spend their money, right? That includes the biggest self-help gurus who sell, bazillion-dollar book launches and have you fly in and walk on hot coals. I don't know if people do that anymore. I know that was a thing like in the 80s, or was it the 90s, where you would go to these seminars and with mind over matter, you would walk across hot coals to show that you had sort of internalized the teachings of that guru. And it really hasn't changed that much, but there are people out there who sincerely want to teach the power of your own self, that you yourself are powerful. And those are the people I gravitated toward. I'm not saying that these healers and these teachers shouldn't make a living and make a good living. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if their message becomes, you're going to grieve forever, or you're going to suffer forever, it's always going to be a part of you. When they start talking about damage that you received as a victim, or as somebody who experienced grief or whatever, that you're always going to have that as a part of your daily life and that you should just accept it. I say no, absolutely not. Because I know that grief can be healed, right? I lost my husband. I lost both of my parents. My best friend actually, she had died a couple years before my husband. And, just a lot of loss and grief. And actually, I had done a lot of grief work around the relationship with my mom long before she ever died, because that was, that was a tough relationship for me. What I know for sure is that even though when I think about the death of my husband and how it affected my kids, of course I have feelings around that. I feel sad, or I remember the good times and I laugh, or whatever it is, but it doesn't hook me, and I don't experience symptoms in my body. I don't react out of that grief or make decisions from that place. And so what I know is that is actually what healing is, or being healed. The state of being healed is when you're not hooked by it, whatever it is. Like, I knew when I could talk about being the survivor of sexual abuse as a child, when I could just talk about it and share with people the things that I did to walk through the pain of that, or, the things that I did to heal that. And I talked about it a lot when I spoke about it, when I would speak about it. And I would not feel any kind of zing or ping or suffering or pain around it, because I'd done this work that healed that in my life. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that it was okay. It means that I healed from that trauma. right? And so if I can apply it to grief and sexual abuse and trauma, it works in every area of a person's life. And like I said, I'm not some special case. I'm just a regular person, and yes, I went through a lot of things. Most people do. Most human beings go through a lot of things. We're going through a lot collectively right now, right? And one of the reasons that I feel so moved to share these techniques is because of what we're going through, collectively and individually. And I am so tired of watching YouTube videos or hearing people speak about the never ending process of healing, because it's just not true. There is a solution, right? And it's really simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have feelings around it, or that you're not going to have, a hard time as you process things or as things leave your body. But it does mean that it's possible. And I think that that's such an important message to get out into the world. Listen, I'll just tell you really quickly the 3 things that work the best for me to really heal these areas of my life. And then I'll just move on and say goodbye. So the first thing is really about thought interrogation. I don't love the word interrogation. I've been trying to think of a better way to say this. When I did the work of Byron Katie, and if you haven't heard of her, please look her up, Byron Katie. She's amazing. Her teachings are amazing. I think the word she used was inquiry, where you really look into the truth, the veracity of the thoughts that cause you suffering. If you think something and immediately after you have a painful reaction in your body, sometimes it's like in our gut, or it's our heart hurts, or we start to cry, or we get angry, or whatever it is, it brings up just very strong emotions that cause our suffering. That is a thought that needs to be looked at. And this requires extreme awareness about your own thoughts and your own process. And sometimes, especially in the beginning, I would write the exercises out. And eventually I did it enough that it became a practice, and I could recognize when I was suffering. So we typically know when we're suffering, right? So then I could take whatever the preceding thought was and really look at that and interrogate it. And for me, though, I always pictured it like little knots. And I would have like series of knots float across my consciousness, and I could be conscious of the one that was causing this particular pain, or the couple of thoughts that would stick together. And I could picture myself stopping the thought, looking at it, realizing it was all knotted up, and untie it, unknot it, and then release it, let it go. And that I would do this over and over and over, and really get extremely clear and aware of what my thoughts are, because there was suffering behind them. That was my clue. Anytime I started to hurt, I knew I had a thought that was not serving my highest good. And I would, I guess, capture it and unknot it. So that would be like the very first step of the second stage of recovery. And then the next step, I would say, is shadow work. Now, I know shadow work has become popular in the last few years. I've been doing shadow work for about 22 years. And I have to tell you that, and really intensely, like for 12 years, it can be really dense and complicated seeming, but it's not. It's really just the parts of ourselves that we sublimate, that we feel ashamed about, that we don't want to share with the world. We don't want anyone to know about them. It's like we go in the closet, close the door, and, do whatever in the dark. You know what I mean? So shadow work is really about pulling those little injured, sublimated parts of ourselves out into the light of our love and our acceptance, and being willing to take a really serious and honest look at those parts of ourselves. The things that we felt like made us wrong. And, really look at it. Is it going through the drive-through at 2 in the morning and eating two big Happy Meals, because I used to do stuff like that. I used to weigh almost 300 pounds after my husband died. And so I used to do that, and I did it in the dark of night. And so it's pretty easy to see that that's shadow. And when I started to heal my eating addiction, I would say that was one of the stickiest, most difficult things to heal, but it heals. It does heal. Is it drinking a second glass of wine when nobody's around? You just pour it on the sly? What is it? Is it judging people? Is it, horrible self-hatred talk to make yourself act the way you think that you should act? I don't know. Whatever it is for you, you pull it into the light and you love on it, and maybe write about it and get really real with yourself. Okay? And then the third thing is, and these first two really go with this, it's like a part A and part B of number 3, if that makes sense. It's radical presence. I based an entire business off of teaching people how to be radically present in their lives back in the olden days. And I still say that this is one of the best tools in your arsenal, is learning how to really be present with yourself, here in your body, and present with those around you, right? So you're not living in the past or living in an unknowable future. You're right here, right now. Even if it's not the most beautiful view right here and right now, you stay here with yourself, right? And what I've added to that in the last 5 years or so is a somatic practice, where and I have done this in my own life, I believe and I love to keep things really simple. I don't want to complicate anything. I don't want to have to go search for it forever and ever, right? I've told you this. I want to learn it and I want to use it in my life. And so when I talk about and teach somatics, it's about breath work. It's about simple movement that gets you grounded and back in your body to regulate your nervous system, brings you here, back to this present moment. So it's those 3 things mainly, and they are very simple practices. And like I said before, simple doesn't equal easy, but it does equal a healed life. And that's what I want to share with people. I feel like that's why I'm here on this planet, truly, is to tell people to stop buying into the myth of forever healing. Okay? It's a myth. It's not real. What is real is a healed life and learning things that you can actually practically use out there in the real world. Okay? That was it. I just wanted to share that message with you guys. And I really appreciate it if you made it here to the end of the video. I have some links in my description. One is a free PDF, 5 Steps of Being Happier Now. And then I have some somatic practices that I've put together in a really simple format. There's a link there for that. And also a way to contact me if you want to. Okay, well, I hope you guys have the most beautiful and blessed rest of your day. And I'll talk to you next time.